Thanks for joining me in the Listen Up Grow podcast. I'm your host, Zach Randles-Friedman. Today's episode is one I've been sitting with for a few days because it's heavy and because it matters. This is an episode where I'm going to do a deep dive into a story that is resonating and is very important. We're talking about Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old mother, partner, writer, and community member who was fatally shot by ICE agents in Minneapolis. This is not just another breaking news story. It's a human story, a family story, and a warning story. There are two different versions of what happened that day. There is a deep grief on both sides and official justification on the other. And somewhere in the middle is a life that should still be here. Today, we're going to be talking about all of it, the facts that we know and feelings on both sides, and why this moment should alarm every single one of us. Before we start talking about the shooting, we have to talk about who Renee Good was, because she was not a statistic. Renee was a mother of three. She was married to her wife, Becca, and she was a writer, poet who believed deeply in compassion, faith, and showing up for others. In statements shared publicly, Becca described Renee as pure sunshine, someone whose heart was rooted in kindness and whose values were centered on love, empathy, and service. Friends and family echoed the sentiment, saying Renee had a way of making people feel seen and safe. Her mother described her as one of the kindest people she has ever known. These aren't words people use lightly, and they matter when we've asked to believe competing narratives about who Renee was in her final moments. Renee and her family recently moved to Minneapolis to begin a new chapter. Like so many families, they were building something routine, safety, and a future. And a future was violently interrupted. On the morning of January 7th, Renee and her wife had just dropped off their 6-year-old child at school. It was a normal morning until it wasn't. Federal immigration agents were conducting a large operation in their neighborhood. Community members were present, observing this observation, which has become increasingly common in cities where residents want accountability and transparency during enforcement actions. Video footage later released shows Renee inside her vehicle speaking calmly to agents. At one point, she can be heard saying something along the lines, "That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you." There's no yelling. There's no visible panic. There's no clear escalation in tone. And yet, a moment later, 3 shots were fired by an ICE agent. Renee was struck and later pronounced dead. That moment, the sudden shift from conversation to gunfire, is at the heart of why this story makes people so shaken. Federal officials quickly released a statement saying that Renee posed a threat, claiming she attempted to use her vehicle against an agent. The Department of Homeland Security characterized the incident as an act of domestic terrorism, language that immediately reframed Renee not as a civilian, but as a danger. But witnesses on the scene, neighbors, and Renee's family strongly disputed that characterization. They say Renee did not pose an immediate threat and that the lethal force was unnecessary. Minneapolis officials and local leaders have also raised serious questions about the federal account and have called for a full independent investigation. This is where the fracture deepens, because when the people who killed cannot speak for themselves, the story becomes a battle of authority versus community memory. And history tells us that when law enforcement controls the narrative, early accountability often becomes harder, not easier. Beyond the legal arguments and policy debates is a family living inside unimaginable grief. Renee's wife has spoken about the devastation of trying to explain this loss of their child, about the cruelty of planning memorials instead of milestones, about the hollow silence left behind when someone who anchored your life is suddenly gone. The response from the public has been overwhelming. Vigils have been held across Minneapolis. Memorials appeared almost immediately. And a fundraising campaign to support Renee's family raised millions of dollars in the matter of days. Not because money can fix this, but because people felt compelled to do something, anything, in the face of an irreversible loss. The collective grief is telling us something. People aren't just mourning Renee. They're mourning the idea this could have been prevented. This case raises deeply troubling questions about federal law enforcement accountability. ICE agents are not governed by the same local oversight structures as city police departments. Use of force policies are less transparent. Independent review processes are slower and often internal. And when deadly force is used, the public is frequently asked to accept official explanations about immediate access to evidence. When a civilian dies during a federal operation, the explanation relies heavily on framing that civilian as a threat. And we all should pause. Because if lethal force can be justified this quickly with this little clarity, then the line between enforcement and escalation becomes dangerously thin. This is not about immigration policy alone. This is about whether our systems default to de-escalation or whether force becomes the answer when tensions arise. And right now, the signals are deeply concerning. Renee Good should still be alive. Her children should still have their mother. Her wife should not be navigating grief while also fighting for truth. What we do matters. We have to demand transparency, not just promises of investigation, but real accountability. We have to push independent oversight of federal agents operating in civilian neighborhoods. We have to resist narratives that dehumanize victims in order to justify outcomes. Most importantly, we have to remember Renee as a person, not a headline. A mother, a partner, a writer, someone who believed in kindness and who lost her life in the moment that did not need to end in gunfire. This story, for me personally, has made me really think about where we are going in this country, in this world. If a woman like Renee Good can just be shot and killed and there's no accountability, this could happen to any of us. This is crossing a line that we all need to really think and be aware of. For me, it feels so personal, even though I did not know Renee, but this feels like this is a moment where we have to do something, because if we don't, there won't be any turning back. So take this story and really think about it and come up with a plan for yourself on what you can do to help maybe make a change in this world. And if you're listening at all, this story is telling us something urgent. We cannot normalize this and we cannot stay silent. If this episode resonates with you and you think others should hear it, please be sure to share, because this is the time where we all need to come together as a community. We need to start doing something and standing up. Thanks for listening. I'll be back with more news tomorrow.